Welcome to One-on-One. I'm your host, Lee Adams, and today we have a very, very special guest, and I'm so excited that she's with us today. She is a psychic intuitive, a past life regressionist. She's an author, a two-time author, a teacher, a healer. Her two books that we have right here with us, Life is Just Another Class, One Soul's Journey Through Past Life Regressions, and the other book is Making True Love, Healing Relationship Patterns Through Past Life Regressions. I'd like to welcome my special guest, Karen Kubicko. Karen, it's so great to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Lee.
You do such interesting work. But before we get into all of that, we have this beautiful painting that's sitting right between the two of us. And there's a story behind this painting, and I want you to tell us the story.
All right, Lee, we'll start with that. So I had two near-death experiences, and the first one I had when I was giving birth to my second child, and that was a long time ago, and they're doing fine. But then in 2016, in between that time and 2016, I started delving into all this metaphysical work where I was learning how to trust my own intuition. I was learning all about past life regression. And I had the second near-death experience. I spoke to Archangel Jophiel, and she wanted me to come with her. I remember her saying, "Come with me." And she showed me a lot of things. And I chose to come back into this life. After that experience, I started being more open than I was previously to seeing spirit guides, to seeing angels, talking to past over people, and seeing other people's past lives. So out of exasperation, in a sense, I asked the other side, I'm like, oh, can you guys just organize so that I know who's talking to me? Because I was just kind of getting information from all over the place. And so it feels like after I kind of asked that question, they started to line up in this sense. So when I'm looking at you, for example, this would be you in the middle. I see all of your chakras. I can see part of your aura. And behind you would be all of your archangels and angels of all kinds. There's lots of kinds of angels. And then on this side of you, which would be here, would be all of your spirit guides. And I see 4 different kinds of spirit guides. There are council member spirit guides. They help you pick out your lifetime and stay on your path. You have main spirit guides who kind of pair up and help you through whatever lifetime and whatever you're working on. Then there are muse-like inspirational guides. So for example, if you want to be a writer or a painter, there are groups of guides who are specialists in that specific thing, and they help inspire you to do that. And then the last group is passed over loved ones from other lifetimes who on your dying moment in a past life, they made a vow or commitment to you. I'm never going to leave your side. I'm always going to be here with you. And because they made that vow or commitment to you, they're still standing here watching over you. Then we have all your past lifetimes. They all kind of line up from most recent to infinite past. And that helps me to know, like if one of your spirit guides is talking to me about a past lifetime, if I'm like being shown that lifetime here, I know it's a more recent. If I'm being shown a lifetime way, 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 way back, then it's a pretty long time ago. And so they're kind of like lined up, and it's hard to explain, but they'll show me how many lifetimes did you have as this or that, or you had a special trait where you were very good at this or that, and they'll say, oh, he had 12 lifetimes where he was able to do this speaking or whatever. And then the last group of folks that are on this painting is your past over loved ones, and they stand right here for me. So now whenever I work with somebody, if I am like hearing and seeing or looking in this direction, I know it's from one of your spirit guides. If I'm looking and seeing and knowing information from this direction, I know it's an angel. If I'm looking over this way and getting information and seeing past over people, then I know that they're past over folks because I asked them to organize.
You asked them to organize, and did they comply?
They did. So when I do readings for someone, I started passing out a print of this painting with some details on it because I felt like I was being rude because I wasn't looking at them in the eyes. I was looking at their spirit guides, looking at their angels, watching a vision from one of their past lives or speaking to a past or a loved one. So that's why this painting is here, because it's kind of representative of what I see on the other side, which I think that most psychics can see, most of that. But and sometimes all of it depends on what their talent is.
How did you get into this psychicness of your life?
Well, after I had that first near-death experience, I had a experience where I felt like I needed to go to see a psychic. I had grown up Catholic, never delved into any of this kind of stuff, gotten pretty far away from my faith, to be honest, at the time. And so I went to a psychic with my 3-month-old child, and I had I think one of my siblings came with me, and one of my friends was talking about it. So we all went, and he says to me, I know you have a newborn out there, and if you don't help them understand what their third eye, they might go crazy. And I'm like, wait a minute. We almost just died, and now I don't even know what a third eye is. So I started delving into all this psychic things and whatnot, and I was totally over my head. And I totally was trying to delve into and learn more about, be comfortable with it, because I felt like to be a good mother, if I would be more comfortable with that, then I can teach my child about it. And so now, 3 years later, I'm finding a book on children's past lives. And I delve into that subject because I thought, oh, little kid stuff, something that I don't understand, but sort of on that metaphysical realm of knowledge. And I couldn't put the book down. I got really interested in it. And now I'm reading Brian Weiss's books, which we talked about earlier. And he's really an expert in past life regression work. I took one of his classes in 2007 to learn how to do past life regression work a little more. I had read a lot about it. And I actually got to be on the stage with him and be regressed by him. So that was really super cool, because not too many people get that opportunity.
Right.
And the lifetime that I remembered part of when I was on the stage with him is actually in my first book.
Really?
So that's really neat. And so then fast forward in time even more, I started being able to see other people's past lives, talking to their spirit guides, talking to their angels, seeing passed over people from the other side while I was in the midst of remembering a past life. And then I had started to take some lessons on how to trust my intuition. And the gentleman that I was working with, he said, well, why can't you just see all this information and get this information without being in like a meditative state? And I'm like, I don't know, I never tried. So then I started working on that, practicing with whomever would let me give them a reading and talk to their spirit guides, see a past life for them or something like that. And I was just really getting much better and more comfortable with that. Still practicing helping people to remember a past lifetime, still helping them to provide information to them and whatnot. And then I had a second near-death experience in a car wreck. And 3 months later, I painted that. So it really made everything become much more clearer. And when you are having a near-death experience, there becomes zero doubts on what it is that is beyond this humanness.
And so when you had that car near-death experience crash, what happened then?
Well, I was turning into the parking lot to get my hair done, and an older couple hit into the back of my car and it spun, and then I hit my head and passed out. But what I remember the most, I didn't remember all of that. I just know that happened from people telling me. But I remember looking down at my body and looking up and seeing a light and an Archangel Jophiel saying, "Come with me." And so I took her hand, and then we were talking about my children, which I didn't want to leave behind. And we were visiting some future times in this current lifetime of mine, and she was showing me potentials of what could happen. And it is a whole lot of other stuff to really just help me be more comfortable with me as a spiritual being. And then I came back in my body because I chose to come back in this life. And then I had a really bad concussion, and it took a lot of years to heal from that. But in the meantime, I was very connected with being able to see so much more than before. It's almost like it woke you up and removed any barriers or rules that you might have made that prevented you from accessing that pure knowledge. We're born with these intuitive abilities. We just forget.
But that point of inflection was a turning point for you.
For sure. For sure.
And so now you do past life regressions with people.
Correct.
And, there's people that'll be watching this show saying, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to heaven or hell. Like, that's what I've been taught. And you're saying something completely different.
Well, I have never seen a hell. I've remembered a couple hundred past lives of my own, some of them just snippets. Some of them a little bit more in depth so I could write about them. I've helped hundreds of people remember their own past lives, and I've given hundreds and hundreds of readings. I mean, it's all about you learning how to work through a lifetime and to learn some kind of lesson. But when you get to that end point, 100% of the time, you're going in the light and going into heaven space. I mean, unless you get stuck here in this earth plane, which can be like a hell in a sense. But for the most part, you are not doing that. You're going into the light.
So people that
choosing.
that this is really new to. I mean, I think there's a decent amount of people out there that are open to the metaphysical that you speak about. Mm-hmm. I think there's probably more and more as time goes on. But there are people here watching this that have that very black and white kind of vision of what's going to happen in their afterlife. And you're here to say otherwise. You're here to say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Correct.
But we come back and back depending upon our choices. Correct. In the afterlife.
Everything is a free will choice, Lee. It's a choice to come into this life. You're picking your parents. You're picking the main characters in your experience and the lessons that you're learning how to overcome. And if it takes you 5 different lifetimes to work through that, it might happen. So it's really very interesting how all that works.
Yeah. Are there such a thing as soul clusters or soul groups?
Soul group, that is correct. So if you have, let's say, for example, you met someone that you had a very strong connection with. You might have had 40, 50, 60 lifetimes with them. Now, not all of them would have been maybe as friends or romantic. You might have just been random people that you worked with, or you might have been a variety of things with them, or a passerby. Somehow they interacted with you. You were around that same time with them. But that's what we call soul groups. Like with my own children, I've had other lifetimes with them, hundreds of times probably, but I know of a handful for each of them. And so it's just really nice to know that you're coming into these lifetimes with people that you value and trust, and you're best friends on the other side. Mm. And you're like, hey, let's have this lifetime together. And they're like, sure. And they come along for the ride in a sense. But they're also working on their own things too.
And the other thing I think is important to talk about is exit points.
Okay.
And that in our life, I know in my life, I've had some times, car crashes, and other medical challenges, say, that have been potential exit points, as you like to say, for me. I would like you to explain what that means for people that have never really heard that terminology.
So when you're choosing this lifetime, you are working with one of your council member spirit guides, and they are presenting you with ideas of what you could do when you're picking a life. And so you're picking out your parents, you're working through and being shown some of the different things in your life that you'll then, in this current life, you might have deja vu, Lee. And so when you have a deja vu experience, sometimes it's because you've seen that before in the preview before you come into this lifetime. But also at that time when you're working with your council member spirit guide, you have put into place, well, if I am going to learn these 3 things and I get to that 3rd thing by this point in my life, then I'll continue to stay. But if I only learn one of those things, maybe I take a step back and exit this lifetime, and then I choose another lifetime, maybe that's a little differently laid out for me to access these 3 things I want to learn. But some people have exit points splattered throughout their whole life. It could be couple, it could be 20. It just depends on what you chose with your council member spirit guide before you came into this life. All these lifetimes that we have are to help us to grow on a very deep soul level.
So I've said this in the past, and I want to hear your comment on this, that I think that most bad things serve a purpose.
Like everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. So what, based on your work and what you've learned, how does that integrate into your thinking with the type of work that you do?
Well, sometimes the way that I explain this is, when there is something hard, are you able to overcome it, to work through it, to gain some kind of inner knowledge, gain some understanding? It changes you in some kind of way, especially the big things. How the car wreck affected me, I could have chosen to not come back in this life, but I chose because of what I was shown, and I didn't want to leave my children behind. They were younger at the time. I chose to continue forward because I knew what was going to happen next. But when you're having a hard thing happen, like a car wreck, you could be like, I'm out, Or if you have someone pass, working through that grief is so hard. And so, but learning how to overcome that, and then maybe sometimes someone passes before you because you're then looking into all this and learning that there's more than just this humanness, and understanding that there's spiritual aspects of us, and that brings you some kind of inner peace. So it is, even if, one time I gave this example and I thought it was really interesting. They have the news on, and it's very trauma based most of the time. But sometimes I think that they show interviews with people, and reporters are talking to folks. For example, if a fire happened, how did they overcome that? What did they do? How do they work through all that? Because then that gives a regular person who hasn't had that experience inspiration that, oh, look, they've overcome something, And so how do you overcome this, that, or the other thing? And working through how you get there is what's important. Whether it's over grief, or if, for example, some people get stuck in an abusive relationship or something like that, how do you get out of that? Well, you're learning a sense of self. You're learning how to care about yourself, to love yourself, and learning how to be independent, to be confident. And all those lessons can't be learned if you weren't having that kind of experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always said that I've learned my greatest life lessons through the hardest moments of my life.
Yeah.
And it just goes to follow that. So whenever you're working with, I mean, when I was first introduced to past life regressions and the concept of reincarnation, and that we do come back many times over, this is not what they're teaching in the churches. And so
No.
you get this. I was probably 40 years old when I learned this. And that's when I started reading Brian Weiss, the guy that you were training under. So I thought, okay, they're talking about past lives. Now, this is brand new to me. And so do I accept this? Because I'm indoctrinated in different ways. And so, but I've learned as being educated and higher educated, that being open-minded is a good thing, because we don't know everything.
No.
And we can't just close our minds and say, this is how it is. Well, then we're eliminating a lot of other things that could be. So when I started to hear about these past lives, I started my critical mind and thinking. My critical thinking was that, how can this be true? Okay, everybody's talking. They go into hypnotherapy and they start to talk about, I lived in the 15th century in Spain or whatever it is. And so how can we know that this is anything other than just some kind of random dream? Well, one of the things that I read then through Brian Weiss was that some of the past lives that were extracted, so to speak, some of that information was verifiable, in history.
Right.
And what they're saying, I was here doing that, and here doing that happened in the history books.
Right.
And now this is a person that doesn't know anything about that history.
Agreed.
They did not study that history. Yet they're talking about a moment in time when that happened. And so that is when my radar went way up, Karen. And I thought, okay, now we may have some verifiable proof. So can you speak to that?
Yes. So I can give you hundreds of examples. So I don't know how many you want me to talk about. But the most interesting, I'll just bring up a few. So I've actually had people who have remembered some of the past lives through my help with helping them remember a past life, through past life regression, which, if you don't understand what that is, that's where you go into a deep, meditative, relaxed, hypnotic state where you're very much aware of what's going on, very much in control, and you're explaining and talking about or remembering a past lifetime. And so once you get into that relaxed state and go back into a past life, some of the examples of some people who have brought up some things are very specific details like you talked about. So I have had people describe helmets that they wore in suits of armor and that type of thing. And then they go look up that time period and found exactly what they were talking about. I had a person who remembered being an architect, like an engineer architect for a church, a very specific church. He knew the name, the city, and everything, what it looked like, and described it in detail. And he actually looked it up online and found it still in place in California, this exact church that he never even heard of before in this lifetime. I had someone just the other day, literally, she remembered a lifetime that was very specific, described people from 500 or 600 years ago, actually, and very specific clothes that they were wearing. And we looked it up on Google, and she's like, that's exactly what I was looking at. That's exactly what I was describing. She had no idea that that happened at that time in that place, those clothes specifically. So I've had people go back and remember lifetimes and then go on to Ancestry and find it. I've had past lifetimes where information came through the Civil War and they found themselves being talked about online. And so there's so much out there, Lee, so much.
You know, I saw a television show, and I forget what it was called, but it was basically about children who were very young, but they're talking about things that happened to them that could not have possibly happened in this lifetime because they were born in this little house and they're still in the house.
Right.
They're not traveling the world, but yet they're talking about, you know, one girl was Oklahoma City bombing. The Oklahoma City bombing. And then another boy, I think, talked about being shot down over Japan in a war.
Right.
And so when they brought those kids to those places, it was very powerful to see their reactions, right? And so then you say to yourself, is this just staged? And I just can't believe that.
Well, so here's the thing on that, Lee. Children are so connected to having just been in heaven that they remember everything about themselves. So, you know, kids' brains aren't fully matured until they're around 25. But from the time that they're young up until around 7, 8, or 9, they're open to seeing the other side, trusting their intuitive abilities. They might be staring at the wall and laughing, and they're talking to a spirit guide or an angel or a Passover person. They might communicate, oh, my other mother, I remember when I lived with my other dad, or I remember my other lifetime where I was your mother. And I've had lots of parents talk to me about that kind of stuff. But kids are open to giving that information. There is a gentleman, his name is Ian Stevenson. He's passed now, but I think there's people still doing his work, that is scientifically verifying children and going to visit with them, taking their stories and in a very scientifically noted way, and then going to these places where they believe that they've been from and cross-verifying all the information that came through. I think what you're talking about is something they did here in the United States too. That's similar to that, where they were doing a TV show on that. And so it is all verifiable because that can happen this way. Another way that people can prove that they might have had a past life is if they have a birthmark of some kind. And so that is usually, I can't say 100%, but usually connected to a past life trauma, death of some kind, for sure.
Interesting.
And we can talk about that if you'd like.
Yeah, so would you say if somebody has a fear of heights and that they're young, would you say that that could possibly be connected to a past life?
For sure. For sure. I mean, especially if that fear has no connection to something in this current lifetime. So like, or it could be actually a past lifetime and it's reawakened or exasperated or compounded because of something triggered that memory in this current lifetime. So let me think of a good example for that. And you talked about heights specifically.
Yeah, when people are on bridges
and
on top of mountains and really having some anxiety when they're experiencing this height situation, but it may come from somewhere else.
Well, so I had somebody that was really afraid of flying, okay? And so I helped her remember a lifetime where she was in an airplane and it crashed. And so then she was able to go on her flight and she was fine. I think she had to leave like a month later or something like that, but came to me just on purpose to see if she could figure out what the root cause was for her fear of getting on the plane.
So you did a past life regression?
So we did a past life regression to figure that out.
And did one of them say she was in a crash?
She went right into that lifetime where she was in a crash.
So that explained her anxiety.
Correct. And then she was like feeling not completely over it at that moment, but then texted me later, I went on the flight and it was fine.
How about that?
Yeah.
And so it can do some healing work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I mean, you are an energetic being, and if you have a trauma stuck in you and your energy, and then you can, oh, that's what that is. It's catharsis. It releases from you so that you don't have that fear stuck in you. It's fearful for me to be on a plane now is removed because you're back here in this life. You're not ever really gone.
You know, as a young boy, I was taught to be stoic and not to show emotions because, you know, my father was old school.
Sure.
And he was taught that. And, you know, you teach what you're taught in many cases.
For sure.
But then life evolves and I go through many things, and then I go into some counseling to help deal with different things in life. And a therapist said to me that, you know, your father was a great guy. He did so many wonderful things. But when it comes to this, I suspect that he was just teaching you what he was taught. And that actually the strength, you fashion yourself as a strong man. That's what you were raised as. But it takes strength to be vulnerable. And I looked at her and I thought, that is completely opposite of everything that I was taught in my life. And she said, but where did you learn it? I said, from my father. And so where did he learn it? And we suspected from his father.
For sure.
And so we're learning this lesson, but the truth is, the real truth was, it takes strength to be vulnerable. And so that was a moment of evolution for me. And that now
that was catharsis.
Very cathartic.
For sure.
And it allowed me, like my daughter got married, and she asked me to find a father-daughter dance song. And I'm going through the internet looking at these songs, and through the years I picked through with Kenny Rogers. I mean, I'm listening to this song and I'm thinking about how much I love my daughter and raising my daughter, and tears coming out of my eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, well, the therapist said that's good, you know?
That is good.
It is good. So,
right.
And then I do the dance with her at the wedding, at the reception, and I come off to the side, and my tears were just flying out of me.
Aww.
Because I just love her so much, and she's such a beautiful little sweet soul that have just been so easy to raise. But that therapist gave me permission to express my emotions,
right?
Which was game-changing for me.
For sure.
Right? But does that come into play with the work that you do?
Absolutely. I've had people
talk about that.
Well, game changers. Wow. I've had a lot of people come back to me and say, wow, my life has been so different since we last met. And I get that a lot more than not. Sometimes I never hear from these people again. You know what I mean? They come for that once in a lifetime experience. But sometimes these people form friendships, and I see them often, which is nice. I've had, wow, there's so many examples. So, I mean, even for myself, I mean, I have healed so much.
For yourself.
For myself, for
sure.
Just
talk about a couple of those things.
Well, I mean, I've had people, I'll give you someone else's example first. I've had people come to me and they were not open to any of this metaphysical stuff.
Yeah, skeptic.
In a sense. She had never had a reading or anything like that. She had never done past life regression or anything. And so she was open to a reading, and it was all very interesting, made sense to her. And then she came to me for a past life regression. She went to a lifetime where she was an exceptional healer and psychic. And she was able to embody that past life so deeply that she brought that knowledge and understanding into her current life. And now she is very psychic and an excellent healer.
Amazing.
And just like that. From a skeptic to all in.
To a psychic.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. And so it still amazes her, but it it's very interesting, right? How you can heal on that deep level. For myself, one of the reasons I got into all of this past life regression things, not only because of my child, but also because I found this book on children's past lives. And so I'm reading through it. You can ask in that book, which we talked about briefly, open-ended questions to a child. Well, what did this happen? What did you do in a past life? Why do you think I was your other mother? Tell me more about that. Just asking those kinds of things, and then let your child speak about it. I mean, that's what the book was talking about. The author spoke about how she had remembered a few past lifetimes, and it healed her from having a breathing issue. Well, at the time in my life, I had asthma, and I took a lot of medication for many years, and it was a frustrating situation. And so I am inspired by her work to figure out, well, if she can figure out how to remove her breathing issue, I'm not sure exactly if it was asthma or not, but if she can figure out how to remove that issue of being able to breathe, then I can do it. And so I delved into working on trying to remember my own past lives with the specific intent to find a lifetime or two or more, what would resolve that issue. And so I started by trying to remember a past life. And how do you go about doing that? You can have a dream about it. You can have déjà vu about it. You can have guided meditation, or try to go into meditation on your own to remember a past lifetime. And I have some of those guided meditations on my YouTube channel if anyone's interested to give it a try. And then, or you can go to someone like me and have a one-on-one session and remember a past life in that kind of way, where you're being guided and helped through the experience. So I started remembering my own past lives through listening to a guided meditation. And my first lifetime that I remembered was the lifetime that helped me to heal the asthma that I had at the time. It took 5 years, I have to be honest, because from the first time that I remember that lifetime, the first thing that I saw, that I was a guy, and I was like, what? Because I didn't realize that could really happen too often. And so you can be male, female, any ethnicity, all over the place, all over the whole world of any kind. And so the first thing I remember, I was like, man, I was having a hard time breathing. I was in the middle of dying, and I remember being scruffy, and I had sweat dripping down my face because I was shivering from having a fever. And I had built a fire, and I was trying to blow on it, and I couldn't even do that. And consciously aware that all this was happening while remembering this lifetime, and I'm coughing out loud, literally, while I'm remembering it, because I was having such a hard time breathing in that past lifetime. So it took me 30 tries before I remembered a lifetime, because you have to trust how to get there, first of all, and allowing that information to come through you. But that first instance, then I went back into that lifetime again over the next several years, and finally 5 years later, I remembered the rest of that understanding of that lifetime. And when I remembered that, made that direct connection to this current life that I have right now in breathing, then after that, I kind of was done with the asthma thing. It
cured your asthma?
So it's a whole long story, and I don't know if I want to get into too much of that, but yeah. I was actually in the hospital not being able to breathe. A doctor told me a few weeks after I came out of the hospital, they actually thought I was going to die, because I couldn't even say a sentence that I couldn't breathe. But I remembered the rest of that connection when I was in the hospital for that week, and they're talking to me about end-of-life stuff and everything, and I wasn't even it wasn't even clear that they were considering, oh, she might not come out of this.
Another exit point?
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, no doubt. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, probably another exit point. But after that moment, when I made that connection from that past lifetime and how it was affecting me in this current lifetime, I was out of the hospital in 3 days. And that was in like August, September. And by January, I worked with my doctor, and I always tell people this because, you can't just stop taking stuff.
Right.
I mean, I don't recommend that for anyone.
No.
But I weaned off all the medication I was taking, and by January of 2011, then I had stopped taking everything. So that was quite a while ago.
Fascinating.
I mean, I was taking that medication for so many years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to write your first book?
Well, through working through and understanding where this asthma business was coming from and as my inspiration, I decided I would, I listened to that guided meditation and remembered little tidbits. But I had read people were local here in the area that would be open to helping people remember past lives. And the minute I walked into this person's place in order to remember a past life with the help of the guidance of someone who does this, I heard like an intuitive guidance. I should write a book about this, because I was on a mission to find a book that would help me understand what's all this fuss about. Why are we having all these lifetimes? And is it just we're thrown into this willy-nilly, or is there a reason for this? But when I walked in to have this past life regression, I heard I should write a book about this, because I wanted to figure out what's the fuss. Why are we going from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime? Is it random? Is it worth it? What are we doing here? And so I found out by myself figuring out what's a one soul's journey, because I was looking for someone else's book on this, honestly, and had a terrible time trying to find it. But I wanted to see, do you grow and learn each lifetime? And in fact, you do. So I've had lifetimes where I was pretty illiterate and not very knowledgeable on stuff, and it was not an easy lifetime. And so then I made the conscious decision in another lifetime, I will never be uneducated ever again. In any way I could figure out how to do that, I have to be educated. So
good decision.
Yeah, for sure. For anyone, really.
And so that led to your first book.
That did.
And the first book is mainly about your past lives?
It is. There's 16 different past lives in that book.
And what were you trying to get across with conveying your past lives to the public?
Well, one of the main purposes is, like I said, is to see what's the fuss about. But I did so much healing through doing that I feel like it's almost like my mission to help others be comfortable remembering their own past lives so that they can get some healing out of it.
So you're saying that one of the real big byproducts of past life regressions is healing.
Correct.
And healing is always good.
Always.
Like, it's never bad.
No.
Always good.
Always good.
And that's what the genesis of your first book was about.
Correct. I mean, it's almost like it's my mission to help other people feel comfortable remembering a past lifetime.
Yeah.
But through doing that, I got to see the light, what happens when you go in through the light, working with angels and spirit guides. I mean, it's just so much more. I mean, if you have any doubts that you've ever had a past life, then can you explain why you have it's like an irrational fear. You don't know why you have that fear, or you just love a time period so much that maybe you reenact, or you have 17,000 books on the Roman Empire. Well, why do you think you're so interested in that? Do you know what I mean? Or I met people that collect certain kinds of lamps or certain types of jewelry, or just love or just so much love a place so much that they just want to go there all the time. They learn the language and visit that place. And so it's, why do you think all that is happening? You've had a really loving lifetime there, or you've had a lifetime where you just enjoyed it so much that you're bringing that love of it again in this lifetime, so then you're drawn to that.
There's a term that says this person is an old soul. So based on the work that you've done and the lessons that you've learned, how does old soul fit into what you do?
So I would say that the definition of an old soul is someone that has gone through a lot of lifetimes and learned either a lot in one lifetime or a lot over many lifetimes. Because if you're trying to work on the lesson of faith, for example, It might take you several lifetimes till you can come into a lifetime and have the whole faith on something. But you could have one lifetime and get it without any effort. It just depends on how fast you learn. And with that being said, I've had some people come to me and they're like, I want this to be my last lifetime. I am over this humanness, over it. I'm like, well, then you have a lot of work to do, because you need to forgive everyone and everything that's ever affected you in any way and really mean it, because that releases you from that subconscious connection to it, however that is, and to really come from a space of loving yourself in a deep way. I mean, some people
that is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
I mean, forgiving people and really meaning it.
Really meaning it.
And then really loving yourself.
Really.
And really meaning it.
And loving yourself doesn't mean being selfish.
No.
That's self-care.
Yes.
That is, anytime you're doing healing for yourself, that is self-love.
Yes. And that's an important
That's a whole
distinction.
other discussion.
Yes. Important distinction.
For sure.
And so the first book is 16 chapters, I think.
Well, there's 20-some chapters in there. I kind of go into a little detail how to go about doing that, what past life regression is all about, and what happens when you go through the light, and all kinds of different extrapolations from the different 16 lifetimes.
We did a complete different show on the light.
We did.
But I still think it's if someone doesn't watch that show, then I think we should talk about it.
Okay.
So let's that we can do a little more abridged version, but a version that really people are going to die. Everybody.
You came into this life knowing that was going to happen.
No, there's no way out other than that. That's the way out. So with that being the case, there are people that are deathly afraid of death because of the unknown and the fact that they think it all ends and they don't want it to end, because even though this is not easy life, at least it's life.
Right.
That they can touch and feel and have.
You have to make the most of it, right?
Right.
And so there's no sense getting into this life and just being miserable.
Right.
But to enjoy the people that you're with. It's all about the experience. And when people remember a past life, they are remembering the experiences and the people that they've been with. Truly. That's it. I mean, it's very interesting. But to your point, you
can't take the stuff with you.
You cannot take anything with you.
But you take the lessons with you.
You take the lessons, you take the experiences. So it's not to say that you go spend all your money today and call it a day.
Yeah.
It is, are you making the most of your life? And if you're hoarding stuff and not being thankful and gracious and all that type of stuff, it's just not worth it, in the end. Anyway, when you go into a past life, you remember without a doubt, especially if you go through the death scene, which is when you go to that dying moment, which, by the way, most people don't experience that. They kind of skip it and just go into the next lifetime or whatever. I would say from my experience, only about 20% of the people remember their death scene.
Talk about the death scene.
Most time people they're not ready for it.
It's painful.
It is. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But when you do go through the death scene, especially if you're in my care in a sense, I am helping someone to then see the light, because that's what shows up next. You step out of your physical body. You're not experiencing any of the pain you might be going through. I actually had several people come to me and remember lifetimes that were traumatic, and their spirit part of them jumped out of their body, and their physical body received that pain and suffering, but the energetic, real aspect of you, that spiritual aspect of you, knew nothing of the pain.
So like a plane crash,
So like a plane crash.
They're going down.
Being shot.
And you're saying
whatever.
That the spirit
you're
just
out.
releases.
You're out. Calling that a day. You don't have to, there's no trauma of that impact. You're just not feeling any of it.
And so once you release that spirit from your physical body,
Then the light shows up.
Then the light shows up.
But before you go in the light, most of the time, people are visiting with past or loved ones. Angels are right there for them. Spirit guides are right there for them. You are surrounded by people who care about you on a very deep level.
So comforting.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, oh, I knew I wasn't alone. And there's valid proof about that, and then you go in the light.
Beautiful.
And once you go in the light, that takes you to a higher dimensional place, which is heaven. And there you remember without a doubt who you really are as a spiritual being.
And all of your work that you've done, I don't read or hear anything about hell.
Yeah, I don't have that experience. I have never taken anyone there. The only time that you can compare it to hell is if you don't go in the light, because then you get like lost here in this earth place. You might not realize that you're dead, especially if it was a trauma ending of some kind.
Like a limbo, being in limbo.
Yes, exactly, like a limbo.
Or as the Catholics may say, purgatory.
Right. And if that happens and comes up, because I have regressed people into past lifetimes, and this kind of gets in the weeds a smidge, but we won't go too far. If I've helped someone remember a lifetime where they stepped out of their body and they did not go in the light, then I help them go into the light at that time.
So you can
So they're not lost
that.
Because they're like wandering around aimlessly. And I always can tell when it's happening because the same kind of scenario occurs. They're like, I don't know what's going on here. I feel all alone. I'm just wandering around. There's all these houses. I'm passing by stuff. They're like confused. And so then I ask them the question, do you feel like you've already passed? Let yourself receive a yes or no. And so then they'll be like, yeah, I already did. Like they're like still not amazed that they didn't realize that they were dead. And so then I'm like, now I want you to look around and become aware that there's spirit guides and angels around. And then all of a sudden they have friends and family and spirit guides with them, and they're very aware of it. And then they see the light and go in.
So you can help them see the light.
Correct.
Basically.
For sure. Even though they might have seen it, but they didn't get it. They didn't get that they were dead. So it was very interesting.
And then once you get to the light, then what do you suppose happens that you've learned?
Well, once you get to the light, then you walk about, it's almost like you're walking 10 feet, to be honest. And you walk through the light. It raises your vibration. Once you start going in the light, by the way, Lee, you can't go back. You can't come back and come back into this earth experience. But it's almost like you're committed to pressing forward. You're done. Yeah. And so you go in the light and you're into the greeting room. And in the greeting room is all your friends and family who've passed before you. Sometimes people from other lifetimes are there. Your spirit guides, angels are all there. And it is like a party on the other side. They're like, hey, where you been? So excited to see you. How did it go? It's kind of a fun thing. And so then you greet everyone. And then you go into a room where you're greeted by these angelic beings. And they're just, oh my gosh, they're just so beautiful. They're these immense angels. They got the wings, they're illuminated, and they're pouring just this pure unconditional love energy on you to help you heal from this difficult life that we've had here in this earth. And then you go into the heaven space and choose to do what happens next.
I mean, just to hear that, I have to think that it's just so comforting to know that this is not the end. And so I have to think that the work that you do has to really help people become more comfortable with this big change.
Right.
Have you seen that? Have you heard that? Have people said that to you?
Well, so if you think about it like this, like I've had some people go into past lifetimes where they are remembering themselves being killed or dying in a past lifetime, and they come out of that past life regression and they're like, well, I can't really die. And that gives them such inner confidence that they just do whatever makes them, whatever they're passionate about. Some people might change their careers even.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could change so many
For
things
sure.
because we know, and I mean, some people are deathly afraid of death because it's scary, it's unknown, it could be the final end of all, and that's not a pleasant thought.
No, it's
And
scary.
what you say is much more comforting. And, there's people that are going to try to pick this apart, but, they can pick all they want. You do.
Well, then I would tell them to just give it a try. They have nothing to lose.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I got guided meditations on my YouTube channel. Listen to them. It might take you 30 times like it did for me.
Right. So the second book, Making True Love, Healing Behavioral Patterns.
Well, it's relationship patterns.
Relationship patterns. So talk to me about the genesis of this and why you did this.
Okay. So it's a little bit more of a long story, Lee, but I'll try to make it short. In my first book, I have 16 lifetimes. And so through remembering those lifetimes, I started to notice, I'm like, wow, I really didn't have such a fantastic relationship going on. And I was involved in a relationship at the time that wasn't so great. And so I started delving into understanding, well, why did I choose that? What's the root cause of that? And then I started getting into doing all these readings, which we talked about with the pain in the beginning. And I'm working with all these women that are coming to me who are having these terrible, really abusive, I didn't have that kind of a bad relationship, but they were some seriously abusive situations. And I started to notice patterns. So like if someone was afraid to speak and to be heard in some kind of way, that they had a past lifetime that was a root cause of someone inhibiting them from speaking. And then it carried through in other lifetimes and into this lifetime. They were involved with relationships where they were inhibited to speak, to stand up for themselves, to really express in some kind of way. And the root cause was a long, long, long time ago. And they came into this current lifetime trying to still overcome learning how to speak.
I understand. So this is why you wrote that second
That's
book.
correct. There's 11 different relationship patterns that I have provided in there. And then I gave examples of the kinds of lifetimes that came up and how I helped them to heal.
And that's got to be very gratifying to help others heal.
It is. It is. Yeah, because it changes you you get that love for yourself, that inner confidence. It really is life-changing.
So you're able to help when you're healing. I think is some of the most important work that we do on earth. Certainly life is hard.
Sure.
And each of us experiences trauma in different ways. Some of us experience it at a young age, and some or later on in life. Mm-hmm. And whatever way it is, we experience it because life is not easy. And I don't think for too many people it is.
I haven't met anyone yet.
Yeah. So with that the case, if we are traumatized, the best way to handle that is to heal. But we don't all know how to heal ourselves.
True.
And we need help. And this is
awareness is key.
Yes.
That's the first step.
That's the first step.
That's the first step,
right?
Always.
And I think people, when they look at you and the work that you do, they might, people that are brought up in a certain dogma, a certain religious dogma, are just going to sort of poo-poo this work that you do, like what is that?
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
I didn't know what it was either.
Yeah, but why just brush it aside? At least open your mind to listening to this and say, could this be true?
Sure.
Could this be true? Because if it is true, it's got to take so much anxiety off you as you look at the end of your life.
For sure.
It has to.
Well, it gives you a sense of hope.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, going back to, changing you and the religious tenets that we subscribe to as we're growing up. I mean, I grew up Catholic. I mean, I had faith in a sense, and I went through some trauma things, lost all faith in all of it. I started getting into this past life regression work, and I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. It brought all my faith back, all of it.
And so now this is really the central part of your being, I would say.
For sure.
Yeah?
For sure.
Yeah. And you're helping so many other people heal. I don't know if there's much better work on the earth that you can do.
Well, it's what we're here. That's what I'm here for, to help people to learn more about all of this, to feel comfortable with all of it. I'm always open for any questions people have. I mean, there's no dumb question. I make YouTube videos on purpose to help educate people. I teach classes. I put these books out. I have some of the books free online to listen to or to read about on purpose, because it feels like my reason for being is to help others to be helping themselves to heal. And if this is the route they want to go, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll help them learn about it.
So it seems then that you've done some real evolution in your own journey.
For sure.
And you can see that through this particular lifetime. Because you'd have to maybe guess that you weren't doing this in other lifetimes.
Past life regression work, no, but I have other lifetimes where I've done healing work, for sure. Absolutely.
You have. And so I want you to take a past life of yours, and I want you to tell us about it.
Any particular subject?
Something that you think is interesting.
Okay. All right. So I think I'll talk about Helen.
Okay.
Helen is a woman that I was in the 1920s. So let's step back in time in my lifetime. Before I got into all this, I was I really loved the 1920s. In fact, 25 or 6 or 7 years ago, it was way before my kids were born, I purchased a yearbook from the 1920s because I have tried way too many times to fix my hair how cute they had it back in the 1920s. I loved their clothes. I loved their look. I liked everything about it. I just was enthralled with it. And so I didn't understand why I liked it so much. But now fast forward, I've remembered a lifetime as me as Helen. I am living in Brooklyn. I was educated. I went to school and I learned how to do like office work or something like that. I remember being able to type. And I had saved up this roll of money. I don't know why I kept it in that format, but it was a roll of money. And I bought myself a beautiful outfit that was kind of asymmetrical, kind of a cream colored situation. I bought myself a cloche hat, which I had to look up the name of that. And my hair was all done up. And the exercise of putting on the nylons from the day, which wasn't made of nylon at the time. They were like tights or whatever, silk leggings or whatever, and you had to like fuss with all that. I remember going through that entire exercise because I wanted to go to a dance. Now, this is during Prohibition, where there were speakeasies and dance clubs were prohibited, I guess. And through a friend and their older brother, somebody knew, this gentleman came and took me to a boat that was docked on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. And it was a speakeasy. And he just kind of knew how to get there. And when we got close, you could hear the music playing and people with the long cigarettes and everybody's dressed. And we're dancing the Charleston. There were so many people there. You were kind of dancing like a penguin in a sense. And it took me a while to figure out it was the Charleston that I was remembering. But everybody was like having fun and enjoying everything until this gentleman that took me there, he wasn't there to hang out with me in a romantic kind of way. He just took me to have this experience, go out dancing. And I ordered a drink, but I never got it, Lee, because, whatever, you're at this place where they're serving it. And he's like, come on, we have to go. And we went up inside this boat. The band was down here. There's tables and chairs along the sides. And then there were stairs that went up to like a balcony that overlooked the dance floor and where the band was on the far end. And so we went up to the top and we're looking over, and he wanted me to come up there with him because he was kind of part of the mob. And he said, it'll just be safer up here. And so we were watching what was happening, and then everything stopped. The band stopped. They said, everybody be quiet. They were dousing these gas lights along the sides. They were blown out candles. And pretty soon we were in pitch darkness, and you just heard really quiet whispers, and people were nervous. And then the door opened, and I don't know why I remember this specifically, but the door opened to the inside, and it was like a double set of doors, and it opened in, and people with Tommy guns came and shot a bunch of people, and I got hit in the neck with one of the bullets and fell over the side of the balcony, and that's how I died in 1927 on that boat. And then because of all the shooting and the cigarettes and the gas lights on the side, then the boat started being on fire. Hundreds of people were killed in that accident, and it sunk right there in the Hudson River. I can't find it online, but I was told that I would be able to find a marker that was round and it had the number 89 on it to mark the place where that boat sank. And later years, I was visiting New York, and I asked where Pier 89 was. And the guy said, oh, they used to have markers that were round on the docks, and 89 would have been on the other side of the river. And I was like, wow, he knew all that. I didn't ask him any of this. And it was like verifiable in a sense. But I also was told by my spirit guides, and I haven't delved into all this because I feel like this is a whole other book, to be honest, that I could find a missing persons. My parents never found me, never knew what happened, along with probably most of the people that were on that experience. And there's a missing persons that they never resolved that's out there. So I don't know if they still have that in some kind of way from the 1920s, but it would be interesting to find.
So that's just one of the past lives.
That's just one of them. Oh, I have to mention one more thing, though. Okay. Can I mention one more thing? In this current lifetime, I had a bullet hole sized birthmark right here on my neck up until I remembered that lifetime. And then when I did that forgiveness work, that healing work, it faded away.
Oh, my goodness.
I almost brought a picture of me from high school.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's because you are an energetic being coming through as a physical person. And so when I remember that lifetime, a few months later, I'm like to my girlfriend, I think we need to get out in the sun because my birthmark went away. It was part of who made me me. And so it had been there many years in this life. And so it faded away.
That's
and
amazing.
It's wild. I know.
It is so amazing.
It's so cool.
I mean,
I didn't know that would happen.
So many people, right. I mean, so many people do not consider this to be really so impactful.
For sure.
That it has been in your life and many of the people that you work with. That it sounds as if this is very impactful work and does a lot of healing and understanding, and it seems like it lowers anxieties.
Well, it removes all those fears.
Right.
From so much.
Right. And just that in itself is of such high value. So I just think it's amazing that, and so you do this, you're out Route 28.
Correct.
Is that where you live?
Yep.
Yeah. And you do past life regressions for people?
I do past life regressions. I do psychic intuitive readings. I can see somebody else's past lives and talk to their spirit guides and angels, or I can guide them in a meditative way into a past lifetime where they can remember a life. And then hopefully I try to get them to the point where they're talking to an angel or a spirit guide or their past or loved ones. It's coming. It comes through often. So it's really nice.
So how can people find you?
Well, I have a website. It's KarenKubicko.com. It's Kubicko, in case you want to know how to spell that. And you can just look up Karen Past Life Regression. I'm pretty sure I come up on the Google page. I have stuff on all kinds of social medias, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's all over.
So you're very...
Oh, these are available on Amazon, my books too. So if someone was interested.
Do you sell prints of this?
I do. Oh, prints of that?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I could.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So
Yeah.
they can buy your books, and you're
They can
writing
buy books.
you're writing a third book.
I am working on a third
and
book.
what is that about?
Well, it's about keeping your babies awake. And so, which is not the usual for what a parent would like, but I don't mean awake. I mean awake in a metaphysical sense. Awake to the fact that you have intuitive abilities. Awake to the fact that you are more than just this human. You are a spiritual being having this human life. And how to raise a child in this earth that we're in right now to keep them awake and aware of their intuitive abilities. That as myself, and maybe even yourself, not sure, when I was a young child, I knew I had someone watching over me and hanging out with me that were my spirit guides. I didn't know. I shut all that down and had to reawaken it again when I went through the near death. And so instead of doing that the hard way, you can keep that knowledge and understanding throughout your whole life.
So how can one, listening to this, how can one that maybe has not done any of this work, how can one access their own spirit guides?
That's a great question. So you can ask for your spirit guide to show you a sign of any kind. I have my spirit guides showing me signs, and I saw them on the way here, you know? And so it's like, gosh, I mean, that's the best route to go. You can ask them to show you a feather. You can ask them to show you them a number, a butterfly, a whatever. No different than you ask your passed over person on the other side. You can ask them to show you information. You can ask them to show you this specific sign when you're on the right path and this sign when you're on the wrong path in this current lifetime to help guide you in a better way. You can ask them to come to you in a dream where there is no doubt that that is your spirit guide talking to you in that dream.
And the other thing that you mentioned in prior talks with you is that when someone that has passed, that you love dearly and that was close to you and impactful to your life, that they're gone, okay, from the physical standpoint, right? But for you to access them, for you to bring them back to you, what do you need to do? To talk to them for guidance.
So it's the same as with your spirit guide. You ask them for a sign of hello. I always say a sign of hello from the other side in the physical. So some people might get like flickering lights or the radio clicking on for no apparent reason or their phone beeping, or you get a message that pops through that was left by them 5 years ago, which how does that happen, right? So those might be ways for someone on the other side to try to get through to you. But from my perspective, understanding how it works on the other side, it's kind of exasperating because they're trying to show you thousands of signs and you're like not getting it. And so if you say, passed over person, can you please show me this sign? Spirit guide, can you please show me this sign? And then you see that specific sign, then you know without a doubt that that person is showing you maybe a monarch butterfly. And you know every time you see a monarch butterfly, it's your mother, that type of thing.
But how about if you don't need that particular sign, but you just want to converse with them and talk with them, how can you bring them to you?
Well, you could talk to a psychic.
Or can you just talk to them?
You can. You can actually. So you can, so there's a whole other technique that sometimes I teach people where if you are, so here's the process. You get a notepad and a pen. It's sometimes people call it automatic writing, but you're not letting somebody else use your hand to do the writing. You're trusting the information that you're hearing in your mind. It's telepathy. You're receiving that information, okay? And so maybe you write down, okay, I want to talk to your dad, for example, okay? And so you write down, okay, Dad, I want to know, what do you want to say to me? And so then you just listen for whatever comes in your mind. And it might be like, man, I don't know why I'm sitting here hearing all this kind of stuff. It seems silly, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you maybe start getting information that is, look, I'm really proud of you, and I'm glad that you're my son. Thank you for coming through to me as one of my children, blah, blah, blah. And you start hearing this information, you're trusting that you're receiving it, and you're writing it down, and and then at the end of maybe this one page of information, you feel like you're done, and you look and you read through it, and you're like, oh my goodness, where did this come from? And so you're like, wow, I really got a message here. I mean, I have done that with my council member. I've done that with some Passover people just to kind of like connect with them on a real way. And my one spirit guide, he's funny because he likes to include a word that I don't know the definition of consciously at this moment. And I have to go look it up. But it perfectly makes sense in the information that was being provided. And that's his like way to know that I'm not just getting this information from nowhere. I'm getting it from him, and he's providing that information. So then when I read back through, it's like guidance from the other side, and I know it's him without a doubt because he's telling me these words that I don't know the definition of. It's funny.
So
does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So if
that's something anyone could try.
Yeah. If people want to work with you, can you just explain the different ways that they can work with you to enlist your help to past life and the other things? What do you do?
Well, I do past life regression. That's how I started. And so I help people remember a past life through a guided meditation. And that's one way. The second way is I do a psychic intuitive reading. And so I give everyone like a copy of this print, whether it's a PDF or it's a piece of paper. And I then tune in. I get a number for how many spirit guides are with you at the moment, how many angels are with you at the moment. And then they start providing me with their names, not all of them, just a few, because it would take all day to talk to all of them, because they all have a whole bunch of information to provide. And then they give some messages. If you're interested, then they'll provide me with information on a past life or a root cause of something. You know, why do I have a fear of water? Or why do I have a fear of heights? And then they'll show me that lifetime, and I'll write it down or I'll talk to that person about it. And so that's through a psychic intuitive reading. If for some reason that something comes up that's very traumatic, whether it is through a past life regression or in a psychic reading, then they guide me to do some type of energetic healing. Now, there is a whole other topic we haven't discussed at all. It's Reiki. It's energetic healing where, you know how I described how the angels are removing sort of like bruises or trauma energy from your auric field, your energy part of you. Reiki, it's almost like an understanding of a way to energetically remove those kinds of traumas. And I also help people work through forgiveness through whenever they remember a past lifetime and there's trauma, or if they have a person that has come up in this current lifetime or in a past lifetime or a trauma in any part of that in this lifetime or a past lifetime, I ask them to help them remove that, and I ask the angels to work with them in a guided meditation kind of way. So then there's an energetic healing that's occurring as well.
So you can bring a whole different array of services to people that want to
The
work
guides
with you.
and the angels are guiding me in any process that I work with somebody, whether it's a past life regression or I'm providing a reading. I'm always being given the information. What would be the best for this particular person at this time? And I do this over Zoom. I've worked with people all across the United States and in person.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that you could come and spend
Anytime,
time
Lee.
with us.
I appreciate
this
you.
is really wonderful conversation. I've learned so much about the really important healing work that you do. And like I had said before, I don't know if there's much better work that anybody can do on this earth than to heal, whether it be doctors or therapists, and you're doing it through another way.
Yeah,
Through past
whatever
lives.
works for someone.
Yeah.
Really, Lee.
Yeah. And so it's just such great stuff. And we all have trauma and we all need healing. And there's different ways to find it. And you're one of the ways. You're just one of the ways.
Avenue, correct.
One avenue. So it's just been such a fascinating conversation to learn about all the work that you do and how it impacts people. It's just been very fascinating for me. And I hope it is for our audience. And I just want to thank you again so much for joining us, because it's just, I've learned so much from you.
Anytime, Liam. I have really enjoyed myself. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, you're
honestly.
welcome. And I wish you the best. And when you write some more books, you come back and talk to us again.
For sure.
Okay.
Hopefully I get that one done this year.
Yeah, wonderful.
It's my intent.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for coming.
Sure.
And I want to thank you for watching. One thing I just want to leave you is this. If you go to do your driver's license and they ask you, do you want to be an organ donor, yes or no? I just want, before you make that check, I just want you to think, if your mother, brother, sister, friends, if they needed an organ transplant to save their life, a heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, etc. If they needed one, if you needed one to save your life, would you accept it? And I think the majority of us would say yes. And so if we're going to accept the gift of life, I think that it may make some sense to give the gift of life whenever we check that box on our driver's license. And you can't take your organs with you. You can help other people live here on this particular earth. So I really hope that you can highly consider making that yes mark on your driver's license and give the gift of life, a gift that keeps on giving. Thank you for watching another edition of One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams. Take care.